And with that, what is good, streaming people? Welcome to another edition of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Tommy Tran. We're getting you ready for another big night across high school football, including a look at the top games of the night, the players you should be looking out for. And let's start with the MaxPreps Excellent Schools, the top 5. St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, no change there. Allen, St. John's, and IMG Academy. We will be talking about these 5 schools in depth and a breakdown of some of the other big players across the country. And with that, let's welcome in our guest, Zack Poff, Mr. Everything, editor over at MaxPreps, Sacramento, California, and Barton Simmons, director of scouting at 24/7 Sports. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Let's get right to it. Not waste any time. St. John Bosco rolls. They beat Mililani 52-14 to stay unbeaten, and they did get scored upon, gave up their first points to an Army commit. Zack, what was your biggest takeaway with them still staying undefeated going into this Friday?
DJ Uwangalele. He showed why he's the best quarterback in the country. Now check this out. He had as many touchdowns as incompletions, 6 touchdowns, 6 incompletions. He's the #1 quarterback from 2020 for a reason. And, I know they gave up 14 points, but, they still won 52-14. And you just look at the stats this year. He's got 12 touchdowns and 16 incomplete passes. So DJ Uwangalele, he's not just the top quarterback in 2020. I believe he's the top quarterback in high school football. And, the defense is nasty. I believe they're the best, well-rounded team in high school football for sure.
And again, they're up against Dylan Gabriel, by the way, who has been selected to go to the Polynesian Bowl, which will be shown on CBS Sports Network. So again, #1, St. John Bosco improves to 3-0 behind their star quarterback. Well, again, the Southland is key when it comes to the top 2 teams in the country. Mater Dei continues to roll. The second straight shutout, 1-1 on the year, 49-0 against La Mirada. As you take a look at what they're hosting right now, a St. Mary's squad out of Stockton. Rams in danger of starting the season 0-3. I think that's going to happen. Zack, what are your thoughts about Mater Dei going into this one?
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Tommy. I believe St. Mary's is going to fall to 0-3, and that's just how good Mater Dei is. They're rolling on all cylinders right now. And, I said DJ's the best quarterback. I believe Mater Dei has the best player overall, and that's Brew McCoy. And, you get a look at him right there. He's explosive on offense, kind of got a Julio Jones type of body. And then you put him on defense, and he's Von Miller coming off the edge. I strongly believe he'd be a 5-star linebacker or a 5-star wide receiver. And there's a reason why he's a #1 rated athlete in high school football. He's an absolute beast. And, Bryce Young's a big-time quarterback, 2020 USC commit. Mater Dei, Bosco, October 12th. Get your popcorn ready. That's going to be a big one. And Mater Dei, they play, they're playing later tonight, but in 2 weeks they play IMG Academy, so that's going to be another big one too. So 2 monster tests for Mater Dei to show why they're the #1 team. They're loaded, man. Mace Funa, he's out for the year. He's an Oregon commit. Elias Ricks, #1 corner in 2020, and Miles Morale is a big time guy too. So they're loaded.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable what you're seeing, even on Saturdays from this Mater Dei team with JT Daniels and Amon-Ra St. Brown connecting at USC. And then you look at the 2019 class with Brew McCoy, but you saw those names in red there. The 2020 class at Mater Dei is as loaded as ever. It's crazy that there's just no drop-off. There's no end in sight right now to the talent. I think Elias Ricks, if he continues to play at the level he's been playing, that's a guy that could finish this 2020 cycle as the top cornerback in the country. So I think this is a fascinating team to watch. And as Zack said, I think all eyes are still just itching and waiting for that October matchup with St. John Bosco.
So those are the top 2 teams in all the land. How about #3? And that school resides out in Texas, Allen, Texas, the #1 team in Class 6A. We'll eventually get to Katy in that region. They're going to look to bounce back from that 14-point loss to North Shore, but we're going to focus on the Eagles. Won 40-0 over Horn. They host East High School out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Zack, how do you evaluate this particular team going into their game tonight?
Hey, they won 40-0 against a very talented Mesquite Horn team last week, and East, they got some problems at quarterback right now. They've had to use 4 different guys this year because of injuries. I think Allen's going to win big, and we saw last week with Grant Tisdale, 2019 Ole Miss commit, and Theo Weiss, 5-star Oklahoma commit. Look at Theo right there, just mossing folks. He's a big-time wide receiver, might be the best in high school football. I like Allen big tonight here, especially in Texas.
So that's Allen, Texas.
Yeah, they even had.
Go ahead, Barton.
They even had a Texas State running back that really got the Texas State running back commit that really got the job done on the ground as well. So it's not just what they can do through the air. And you know, Grant Tisdale kind of did what he had to do. Theo Weiss had a couple of scores, but you know, that offensive line really paved the way for the run game as well behind EJ and Doma Oger.
All right, that's a look at Allen, Texas, and the Eagles. Moving on, the most impressive win in this segment right now, St. John's College High, coming from D.C. They beat Hoover 42-14 at Hoover's on-campus stadium, hosting Central out of Miami. Now, I beg to differ. I think maybe Bergen Catholic may have a say in this as well. But, guys, Zach, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on the IMG with that thought of IMG and Murrieta on the horizon. We're talking about, of course, St. John's College here.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think St. John's has the toughest schedule, and they made Hoover look like a cakewalk last week, 42-14 dub. It might have took 2 days because of lightning, but they looked pretty good. And I think it's time people stop sleeping on Sol-J Maeva at quarterback, man. 2020 kid out of Kahuku High School out in the 808. And he put on a show last week in Alabama. He's got another big-time team coming in, Miami Central, number 11 in the top 25. They're loaded with talent, so another big test for St. John's. And, you know, they got IMG next week. So this will be 2 of 3 straight weeks where we see St. John's involved in the MaxPreps game of the week. Big-time game tonight. And Sol-J Maeva is going to be a guy to watch tonight. I think he's going to put on a show in D.C. Actually, they play tomorrow, so Saturday. That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, Sol-J Maeva connected on that game against Hoover with Rakeem Jarrett, another 2020 kid that's really emerging quickly in this 2018 season here. Big time talent, you know, a kid that's getting recruited by everybody in the country. The Penn States of the world seem to be in pretty good shape here as well. But just been fun to watch a quarterback as talented as Sol-J Maeva really connect with a really talented wide receiving core as well. And Keelan Robinson, the Alabama commit, didn't even play the second day of that extended game. So they weren't even at full speed and still got it done against Hoover.
All right, guys, we have been hinting at IMG, so let's talk about IMG Academy. The Florida Power rolled to 2-0 after a 49-14 win over Norland. They traveled to the West Coast and visit Liberty High School in Henderson. That's the Vegas area for the Polynesian Classic. Barton, I'll start with you this time. What are you looking out for in terms of IMG Academy as they continue to roll?
I mean, they seem to keep getting better every week. This is just another opportunity for them to go showcase themselves. I mean, this is a team that treats their program like a college program. The road trip shouldn't be a big deal for them. And I really believe, like, as we continue to see IMG Academy play week in, week out, we continue to see new stars really emerge and sort of be the premier guy. Like Josh Delgado was a kid maybe to keep an eye on at the wide receiver position. Originally out of Southern California, went to IMG Academy and has really flashed over the first couple weeks of this season. And we know about Trey Sanders at running back. We know about that big offensive line, but they got some dudes at the receiver position as well. And Josh Delgado's a guy that's really caught my eye here of late.
So as we take a look at IMG Academy, the number 5 team, again, undefeated so far early on in the season. Let's take a look at some of the other top 25 schools in action. The notables. We've talked about 1, 2, 3. And then also St. John's and D.C. hosting Central. And so, again, the slate is action-packed, as it always is, across the high school football board. And, guys, good stuff so far. Let's keep this thing rolling. As we take a look at the excellent 25 rankings, I do want to focus on Bergen Catholic because they go out of the New Jersey area, they go out of state, they go into Georgia, and they take care of Grayson, which at the time, you know, we were talking about them being one of the top teams, of course, in all the land. Zach, what type of a win was that for the head coach there for Vito Campanelli and his squad going there, getting a big win?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big-time statement win for him in his first game as Bergen's head coach. You know, he took over for his brother this year, and they looked impressive, not only beating Grayson, but doing it in Georgia also. And I think this was a big win for the program because last year they went out to SoCal and Mater Dei won by nearly 50 points. So this was a big out-of-state win for Bergen Catholic. Grayson's loaded with, you know, about 25 D1 players, and 2019 Nebraska commit Ramir Johnson put on a show. And you see Josh McKenzie on there, you know. They did it without him because he's out for the year with a torn ACL. So Big-time performance, though, from Ramir. Nebraska fans got to be happy what they saw from him for sure.
So let's take a look at the schools 16 to 25 in the excellent rankings. And I had mentioned North Shore getting that big win over Katy. And so, Barton, when we take a look at this particular squad and the players that they have, who are you looking out for?
Hey, another 2020 guy. What do you know? I think Zachary Evans at the running back position is about as good as they come. Look, I mean, the kid is big. He's got great straight line, long speed. He's extremely explosive. And you can see he's got some jump cut lateral ability as well. A kid that's got an argument as maybe the best running back regardless of class in the country this year. He's that kind of a talent from an athleticism standpoint. So I think that's the guy for this program to kind of keep your eye on throughout the year. But they've got a lot of firepower on the offensive side of the ball. And as you can see, it's a young roster as well, led by Zachary Evans. And they don't seem to be showing any signs of dropping off here in the near future.
So that's a look at some of the big schools as we take a look at the other notable games. Folsom and Chaminade in California. Got a top 16 team in Bigham in action as well. Grayson with the loss drops to 22, taking on Marietta. That should be an exciting matchup this Friday. And then Hoover also looking to bounce back after getting the loss, hosting Thompson. Kickoff set for 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, gentlemen, why don't you stick around when we come back. We're going to talk about some recruiting stuff, and specifically also we're going to go out to the islands and talk about a big-time matchup and give you an insight on St. Louis High School, what makes them tick, the players to look out for. So stick with us. We'll be right back right here, CBS Sports HQ. Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Let's take a look at the West Coast region and the teams that we have already talked about on the program. One we are about to talk about is number 4, St. Louis out of Hawaii. Number 10 overall, St. Louis taking on Kahuku. So, gentlemen, this is a really good matchup with two programs that have state champions the last 3 years, with St. Louis winning the last 2. Zach, what are you thinking in terms of this school and what makes them so good and the challenge they have in front of them this weekend?
And hey, before we get to that, that just shows you how good the West Coast football is. All 5 of those teams are ranked in the top 12 and our top 25. But, you know, you look at St. Louis, number 10, their defense is straight nasty. Fatui Tuateli, big-time defensive tackle, one of the best defensive players in 2019. And then you got Jordan Botello at linebacker, one of the best in 2020. But the guy that's been big-time for them this year has been their 2020 quarterback, Jaden DeLaura. And, you know, Coach Lee has had a bunch of good quarterbacks come through St. Louis High School. You know, Tua Tagovailoa has been putting on a show for Alabama, you know, since the national championship and, you know, first game this year. And Marcus Mariota is also another big-time quarterback to come from St. Louis. You see the list right there, man. Lists don't lie.
Yeah, and we have names like Tua Tagovailoa, Marcus Mariota, Cameron Higgins, and company. So you see the talent. Hey, also 2-0, Nick Rolovich over at Hawaii is doing some great things. Barton, what does it do in terms of speaks to the talent out in the islands and what some of the football players are like out there?
Timmy Chang, a blast from the past. That's the guy I used to look up when I was playing back in 2000. Yeah, I mean, look, this is a really impressive group of talent they got. You know, Zach mentioned Jordan Botello, who's I think is a guy that's really emerged as someone that we really like a lot in the class of 2020. But Fatui Tuitele is really the premier guy, really on the island. I mean, this is a kid that's got a national name on the defensive line. Washington has really done a really good job recruiting him, and that looks like probably the favorite and the leader in this race right now. But that really has become a destination spot for recruiters, and I think in turn, the whole island of Hawaii has become a destination spot for recruiters. It's become a much bigger priority nationally on the recruiting scene.
So we were way, way out west. Now let's move out to a different region. That would be the Southwest, and take a look at Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Missouri, Colorado, Kansas, and then some. We have already talked about Allen at the top. We've talked about Lake Travis there before. Let's this time focus, Barton, on University Lab, maybe a school that a lot of people don't know about, but why should we be paying attention to that program?
Well, you know, they don't play quite the same level of competition as some of those schools ranked above it, and I sure wish they did, because, man, are they ever talented. That group you're looking at is as good as it comes. Jordan Clark, the son of Ryan Clark, former NFL DB, really talented kid. I think Christian Harris is the most unique, interesting player of the bunch. He plays cornerback primarily for University Lab, plays some wide receiver as well, but Texas A&M has got him committed, and they like him as a linebacker prospect. And athletically and physically, he could really be a difference maker at that position. Just a big-time talent. And then they have Tyrion Davis as well, the running back committed to LSU. Just so much athleticism, so much talent on this roster. Big-time opportunity for them to really continue to up their stock and up their game, because I think this is one of the more talented rosters you're going to find in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, man, and I got to agree with everything Barton said right there. And, you look at University Lab, they're the first team out of the top 25. So if anyone in the top 25 slips this week, there's a good chance they're going to jump into the rankings on Monday. And, last year they ran the table, went 14-0, were the Division II Louisiana State champs. And I like the matchup tonight. They play Southern Lab. They got a big-time offensive guard in Cardale Thomas, a future LSU Tiger. So that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. But I think University Lab's going to win their 16th straight tonight for sure. They're loaded, as Barton said. Christian Harris, man, he's super special for sure.
Let's move on to the Southeast region. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina. Again, IMG Academy is right there, but let's focus on St. Thomas Aquinas. And Zach, here we go. When we talk about this team out of Florida, nationally ranked number 7, what would they need to show you to either maintain where they're at or even maybe challenge the top spot?
It's tough because I'm not going to just drop teams, based on if they get wins. So, Aquinas just got to keep winning, and eventually, you're going to see probably the teams 1 through 6 eventually maybe lose a game here or there. So Aquinas just needs to keep winning. And it was interesting, earlier this week I was able to talk to, Larry Bluestein, a legend out in South Florida. He's been covering, the Florida area for over 30 years. And I simply asked him, I said, hey, man, is this Aquinas defense as good as we've seen in St. Thomas Aquinas in the past? They've had some studs, obviously Geno Atkins and the Bosa brothers. He said this defense is as good as he has ever seen. You get a look right there. Jordan Battle, Ohio State commit. They're loaded. Anthony Solomon, Jaden Davis, Oklahoma guy. They're flying around this year, man. And what they did at DeMatha week 1, 38-0 dub on primetime ESPN, that was an upset right there for the boys down in South Florida.
And to Zach's point, you watch St. Thomas Aquinas and you have those big names that he mentioned and that were listed, but they're the type of team where you can watch them, and some other guy that you're not even prepared to keep an eye out for is the guy that flashes. Braylon Ingram is a kid that did that a couple weeks ago on national television, just really flashed as a big-time playmaker. Avery Huff has been having a really impressive season. Tyreek Sapp, the list just goes on and on. It's just such a deep roster on the defensive side of the ball in particular, which is going to make them a really tough team to beat all year long.
So that's a look at St. Thomas Aquinas. Let's go to the Midwest region and talk about Warren Central out in Indiana. Zach, let us know a little bit about Warren Central in that particular region and why those fans across the country and locally should be paying attention to this squad.
One name, David Bell. This kid's super saucy, man. You throw the rock to him, he's going to come down with it. Last week, 10 receptions, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jaden George is, shown he's got a big-time arm. He's the son of, former #1 pick in the NFL draft, Jeff George. And it's nice when you got number 4 to throw the rock to. David Bell, he's one of the top wide receivers in the country. He's a 4-star for a reason. And I know Purdue's hoping they can get him because Rondell Moore and him would be pretty special. But a fun fact, too, with Warren Central, they're trying to win their 9th state title. But if Jaden George leads them to one, he would be the 3rd George to lead Warren Central to a state title. Jeff won back in the 80s, and then Jeff George Jr. did it a few years ago. So Jaden's trying to, have something to talk about at Thanksgiving dinner also.
And let's wrap things up with the Northeast and talk about St. John's taking on Miami Central. We've talked about that big matchup going on right now. In what other ways was St. John's sort of the top dog in this region? Zach, we'll go with you.
Yeah, they're loaded everywhere, man. Miami Central's got a bunch of dudes, too. Henry Gray, a 2020 Miami commit at corner. Jesus Machado got offered from Alabama when he was in 8th grade, and he's been a big addition for Miami Central's defense this year. But I actually like St. John's by a couple of scores. I think they're going to win this one at home. And I really strongly believe St. John's is on the short list of teams that could be #1 when this season's over. They're loaded on defense with MJ Sherman, a 2020 5-star linebacker. And then we talked about their offense earlier in the show with Sol J. Maeva. So, Rakeem Jarrett's nice. and Keelan Robinson, Alabama guy. St. John's is loaded as anyone in the country, and they have the toughest schedule. So they're playing smoke. They're playing guys. They're not afraid of any smoke this year. I love what I'm seeing out of those boys.
CBS Sports Network show We Need to Talk will be airing a feature on the Porter Early College High School out in Brownsville, Texas. Now, the high school football team made up of Mexican immigrants who are in various situations. Some commute across the border just to go to school, while others live with family out in Texas, unable to see their family out in Mexico. Again, this will air Tuesdays on We Need to Talk.
We're a border town. Here, it's a way of life. I'm talking about teenagers, coming to school here. Who are we to say no to them? They're just kids. It's not their fault.
This field ain't just a game. This ain't just a game, it's life. We fight every day. We fight problems at home. Some of y'all have messed up families. Some of y'all struggle. Some of y'all struggle with money. Some of y'all struggle with injuries. I don't know what it is. Some of y'all struggle. You have the worst lives, and I know it. And I love y'all. That's why I chose Porter. We stay strong. We fight together. We live together. We bleed in the locker room. We cry in the locker room. It's the love of the game. It's the passion. It's the heart. It's the brotherhood. It's Porter. That's what we represent. All day, all night, every day, every night. That's what it is.
And you can catch that feature, Porter Early College High School, again, CBS Sports Network, Tuesday, 9/11 at 8 o'clock. Time to get to the top recruiting storylines from 24/7 Sports. Florida lands a 4-star defensive back. Florida State also lands a 4-star defensive back. And which schools are leading the charge on the recruiting trail in 2020? Barton, let's start with that Florida new recruit. Jaden Hill commits to Florida. What does that mean for the Gators?
It's a big get for the Gators, not only because he's a really talented player, a good defensive back, helps add to that DBU rep that they've tried to build there, but also the way they landed him. A kid from Alabama that they beat out the University of Tennessee for. There was a lot of uncertainty when it got down to that announcement. Tennessee seemed to feel confident they were going to land him. Florida did as well, and the Gators ended up pulling this one out. And I think he's a really good pickup because he's a physical kid. He has ball skills. He's a competitor. And physically, he's going to continue to get bigger and stronger. So really nice get there for the Gators, particularly against an SEC East rival.
Over at Florida State, Willie Taggart still thinking about that loss to Virginia Tech, but he did score a win with Nick Cross there. So what can you tell us about Nick Cross and what the Seminoles are getting?
Yeah, I mean, they're getting one of the most athletic and physically impressive defensive backs in the whole country. Nick Cross, he's like 6 foot, he's 210, 215, but he can run a 4.4, has all the testing numbers you could want. Only been playing football for a couple of years, but he's an absolute gym rat about it. And I think that, for Florida State, coming off a loss in opening week against Virginia Tech, they had Kayvon Thibodeau, the #1 player in the country, on campus for an official visit as well. There's plenty of momentum on the recruiting trail. Don't let the loss in week 1 fool you. Things are going just fine for the Noles, and Nick Cross, a big get, again, out of region. A Maryland kid, one of the top programs in the country at DeMatha. To land a kid from that area, from that program, is always big, and I think Nick Cross is an impact type of guy.
Recruiting never sleeps, Barton. You know that well. Can you tell us which schools are leading the way in 2020 right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a fast start here from Miami, and this isn't necessarily abnormal. We're kind of used to seeing Miami get off to a fast start, but they're once again on a good track here with Mark Richt. And then you look at the kind of a who's who behind them. Alabama kind of learned from the 2017 recruiting class, or 2018 recruiting class rather, where they got off to a little bit of a slower start, and we're seeing them off to a fast pace in 2019. And in 2020 as well, where they got 2 commits from Hewitt-Trussville High School in Alabama among their 6. And so, down the road here, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Florida State again, Willie Taggart off and running quickly in 2020. It's important to keep an eye on these rankings because in 2019, things are already getting close to being wrapped up. So a lot of these programs quickly turning their attention to the 2020 class. and kind of a who's who right now is off to some impressive starts.
Zach, let me bring you in the conversation. What have you heard from some of the coaches or the scouts on the high school level about maybe some trends with the recruiting trail right now? Maybe not specifically to 2020, but what you've heard and what stood out to you.
Yeah, well, one thing too with 2020, I don't want to call it a package deal, but it pretty much is. It sounds like Kendall Milton, a 5-star running back, top 10 recruit, and Elias Ricks down at Mater Dei. It sounds like they're going to be a package deal for somebody. So whatever team can land those two guys is going to take a huge jump in the 2020 class. And a team that's obviously trending upwards is the SoCal team, USC. So they're hoping they can fight on with those two guys. And real quick, another 2020 guy down in Mater Dei. Oklahoma commit Darion Green-Warren. He makes his return tonight from Mater Dei. As if their defense wasn't good enough, now they get a 2020 Oklahoma guy. So that's something I'm watching for tonight. He's a big-time DB. Him and Elias Ricks, man, they're a nasty 1-2 duo in the secondary for sure.
All right, gentlemen, another good week of high school football previews. Can't wait to talk about maybe the upsets, the storylines, as we will every week and every Friday right here on CBS Sports HQ. That's Barton Simmons and Zack Poff joining me. I'm Tommy Tran, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy high school football. And before we let you go, remember to check out the 24/7 Sports College Football Podcast. Barton's part of that deal. Good stuff there as they bring you in-depth analysis from the best and brightest at 24/7 Sports. Chip Patterson also in the mix as well. They discuss those hot topics, make straight up and against the spread picks for all the biggest games and share expert insight on the stories from the day. Check it out, everybody. Check us out, and we will see you 1 week from today. We'll see you.